Welcome to the last week of the course. So hopefully everybody's been studying up. You read all the extra documents aside from your textbook this week. Hopefully everybody got around to reading those. I know things start to get busy this time of year. So yeah, this is week 7. Next week, as a reminder, there will not be classes here. Don't show up. Glenn will send you home because it's Easter holidays and everybody's better be with family. So no classes next week, but the week after that is the exam. So in this study period, make sure you're going through all of your notes, go through everything you highlighted, everything that you had questions on, double check with it. If you want to, post inside of the online class. There's a discussion section there. I'll try to get back with any sort of answers I can. But other than that, just review. Do the test online as many times as you can fit in over the next 2 weeks. That's my biggest bit of advice. If you can do it 30 times, fantastic. Nobody probably can, but at least 3 or 4 or 5 times. So, questions. We already had high pass, low pass. Hopefully, did you get a good answer on that?
I got the low pass, and the high pass is the same thing, but it's tuned so low pass will attenuate any frequency, say above 40 megahertz, and you got to pass power through it. Low pass is just to pass a signal, like a television signal through it. You're not trying to pump 200 watts through it. So they're very physically small, and clamp on the back of a TV set, basically, and it's just frequencies above 80 megahertz.
You keep using the word tank.
Tank circuit?
Talking about the...
Well, yeah. We'll go into that.
Okay. Well,
one thing on
yeah, of course.
it mentioned in some of the technical documents about the Health Canada Section 6 or something like that. Yeah, are we going to be testing on that? Do we print that off?
So the only safety code 6 requirements you need to know is the particular maximum wattage for handhelds is no longer different than anything else.
Yep.
And generally about it, but it's not going to ask you, for example, what is the maximum allowable energy or anything like that.
So we don't have to print it off or read it, just what's in the books.
Exactly. What's covered in the book for safety code 6 is more than sufficient for the exam.
Okay.
But,
Okay, and those other print-offs we did, are they necessary, or is the book cover it?
they are necessary. So
Okay.
Chapter 17 specifically says it doesn't get into the detail for 2 reasons. One, they can technically change them at any time, and they do periodically update the regulations. So definitely keep apprised of that even after you get your license. And 2, printing all of it in full in the text would add an extra 50 pages, so it's better if you grab it online from Industry Canada.
Okay.
So, any other questions? No? Okay. So first, I just wanted to go over the list of people who have paid up for the exam. I've got Glenn, Jeffrey, Thomas, Bob, Bob. We've got Graham, Jose, Jackie, and Sabrina.
And I gave you money for Ken.
And Ken just paid up. Anybody who's not on the list who wants to take their exam, even guys who already have their license, it's $50 for the exam, and that gets you through that. If you don't take it this time, you can roll it into the next one. I know a couple of people who have said they wanted to do that. So, all right. Big thing, you have to bring photo ID for the exam, right? Industry Canada mandates that you have a piece of government-issued ID that can verify your identity when you write. It's just so that you couldn't write for somebody else and say that who they are. Driver's license is more than fine. If you don't have one, passport should be okay. If you don't have a passport, you'd have to check online for exactly what you need. I believe you run into 2 pieces of ID at that point, where you would need like an OHIP card and your birth certificate or something.
Health cards in general are not able to be used as ID.
The reason you'd be able to do that though is birth certificate would count, but it's not photo ID, so you'd also need a piece of other photo ID. So, if you have a province card for ID, the Canada ID card, I think it is. Ontario ID card? Yeah. So you'd be able to use that as well. But I'm pretty sure most people have a
driver's license pretty well do it all on its
absolutely.
own?
Yeah, driver's.
Yeah.
Driver's license counts for everything.
I know I do it on a regular basis. We're not allowed to look at health cards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
If that is going to be a problem, let me know, and we can work it out with a person coming. But other than that, to begin this evening, we're going to review radio design. So this is how everything is connected inside of a radio. Hopefully everybody restudied that.
Yeah.
I like that laugh. In a frequency modulated transmitter, the input to the speech amplifier is connected to the
Microphone.
Correct. Yep, it's the microphone. In a frequency modulated transmitter, the blank is located between the modulator and the frequency multiplier.
Power amplifier?
No filters there. Okay.
Power amplifier?
I'm guessing, I should
Speech amplifier.
Range amplifier?
No.
It's the oscillator.
Yeah,
So,
Sorry, what is an oscillator again?
it's just a device that produces a sine wave. So, in this particular case, what's happening is it takes the modulator, which is the device that takes the audio frequency and mixes it into the RF, and it has to produce an oscillation in order to get to the desired frequency you need for the output. So, in a frequency modulated transmitter, the blank is located between the frequency multiplier and the antenna. This is always right before you get to the antenna.
What is this name?
Yeah.
Which, sorry? Modulator? So, it's the power amplifier. So, the amplifier always comes last in these circuits. So, in a CW transmitter, the output from the blank is connected to the driver or buffer.
Number one.
Telegraph key.
Oh, master oscillator. My bad.
Yes, that was the first one in the line.
Sorry?
I remember there's 4 in a line, and then I stopped remembering.
I don't think that's an answer on the test, though, unfortunately. So that's fine. Master oscillator, yeah. So in a CW transmitter, the blank is between the master oscillator and the power amplifier.
Driver buffer.
That's correct. In a CW transmitter, the blank is between the driver buffer stage and the antenna. Yep, power amplifier. So, power amplifier is always last in a transmitter circuit. In a single sideband transmitter, the output of the blank is connected to the balanced modulator.
I think it's a mixer.
Mixer? That's okay. In a single sideband transmitter, the blank is in between the balanced modulator and the mixer.
Radio frequency oscillator?
That's the filter. So, in a single sideband transmitter, the output of the blank is connected to the balanced modulator. It's a speech amplifier. In a single sideband transmitter, the output of the linear amplifier is connected to the
Choose an antenna.
Yep.
That very last.
Amplifier is always connected to the antenna. Or the microphone if it's a speech amplifier, or audio amplifier, sorry. In a frequency modulated receiver, so now we're going the other way, the blank is connected to the input of the radio frequency amplifier.
Antenna.
Antenna, yep. In a frequency modulated receiver, the output of the local oscillator is fed to the
Limiter.
it's a mixer. Yeah. So because we have to put that oscillation back in so we can recover the audio.
We're doing everything in reverse here.
Essentially, yeah.
I thought that was going to be the radio frequency amplifier, but it's the mixer that changes the wave into the signal into words, basically.
Essentially, it allows us to recover the audio from the radio signal.
If you had a block diagram, you could visualize the transmitter and receiver, and it would all make sense. This is not easy to visualize, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
Put all
trouble with
the,
this.
receivers
on
together, all the 3 basic types,
Mhm.
and the only difference is a couple of modules in the middle, near the end of it.
Essentially, yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna help, but I know when I did this, eons ago, it seems like. I just drew up my own page, and
With
I
little
found
ones.
that if I did it myself, if I copied it from a book, it didn't help, but if I drew it out myself and had all three of them there, and then just memorized those, because that was the only way I could figure out how to do it. But, you know, just draw them out, you know, and just memorize them. That's the best way to do it.
Or if you can memorize one and the other one's basically reversed.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Only a couple more of these. So, in a frequency modulation receiver, the blank is between the mixer and the intermediate frequency amplifier.
Is that the limiter?
Filter.
Can I see that again?
Of course.
There's a filter between the mixer and the first IF.
Second IF. Well, yes, the intermediate frequency amplifier. Yes.
Okay.
There's complications there and
Can be done,
subtleties. Yeah. In a frequency modulation receiver, the blank is located between the limiter and the audio frequency amplifier.
I would say the speaker headphones.
Speaker headphones?
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
So, it's the frequency discriminator. Alright, single sideband and CW receivers. The antenna is connected to the...
Radio frequency amplifier.
There we go. Radio frequency amplifier. Alright.
Oh, wait a second.
In a single sideband and CW receiver, the output of the blank is connected to the mixer. So it's the local oscillator again, right? We need our internal oscillator so we can pick out the particular frequency.
Jackie wants me to sit next to her during the test.
If it weren't illegal to have a translator, you could pretend your first language is in English or French. Gobbledygookily gobbledygook. Yeah, she says it's 3. A Canadian radio amateur operating his station in the state of Florida. Okay, so we're past the block diagrams now. These are the questions for tonight. So we're going to go through RIC 3 first, and then we'll do RBR and the CPC after the break. So, Canadian radio amateur operating a station in the state of Florida is subject to which frequency band limits?
Goes up in the table in the United States.
Those applicable,
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. When you operate in another country, you're under their law.
laws.
A subset of a region of a country within a subset of a region is the country within a region. So if one is operating outside of Canada, one must follow not only the ITU regulations, but those of the country you're visiting. So, a Canadian radio amateur operating a station 7 kilometers or 4 miles offshore from the coast of Florida is subject to which frequency band limits? I don't know why they keep putting you in Florida, but I guess they figure every Canadian knows Florida.
Those are applicable to the U.S. radio amateurs.
Yeah, I think it's a 200-mile U.S. territory, isn't it?
Only 50 kilometers. So 50 kilometers off the coast of any country is considered by the United Nations to be international waters. At that point, you're only under ITU regulation. But, I mean, how many people can operate a rig 50 kilometers off the shore?
Tell that to China, because they're not paying that in the Philippines, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Authority to make regulations governing radio communications is derived from...
Radio Communications Act.
No, the ITU.
The ITU radio regulations? So it's the Radio Communications
The act
Act.
itself versus the regulation.
Exactly.
There's no difference between those two.
Which two? These two?
Between the ITU and the Radio Communications Act. One's just a repeat of the other.
No,
It's an
no.
interpretation.
Yeah.
I looked it
So,
up on the internet, and I didn't see any difference in the actual written law.
So-
Am I wrong?
a little bit, yes. So the ITU radio regulations are set by the International Telecommunications Union, a subcommittee of the United Nations. Their job is to set worldwide precedent on what radio regulation should be around the world, so that radios aren't, for example, in Canada, set to one set of frequencies and just across the border an entirely different setup. So they come up with a set of guidelines There's also another one, I believe it's the World Radio Conference, WRC. They also do a bunch of that, where they set out particular bands and such. They produce a set of regulations that the world should follow. For Canada to produce regulations, we first need an act. In order for a government body to produce any sort of legal legislation or regulation, it has to have an act that can say it can do that. So that's where they produce the Radio Communication Act. Once passed, then they can produce the radio communication regulations, which actually specify what we can and can't do in the amateur copy. So it's a complicated process with lots of layers, but it's as simplified as it gets. So the Act provides authority, the regulations provide the laws. Authority to make standards for operation of radio stations and amateur radio service is derived from. Yeah, so it's the Act again. This is because it's again, the authority is derived from. So
Wow.
this is where they're getting really, really weird with their English, but that's what they do. Remember, again, derived authority is still about the authority, not about the laws. Here's a nice old one that we've seen. The holder of an amateur radio operator certificate shall, at the request of a duly appointed radio inspector, produce their certificate or a copy thereof to the inspector within blank hours of the request.
48.
48. Everybody knew that one. That's great. We're learning. Awesome. What age must you? What age must you be to hold an amateur radio operator certificate with basic qualifications?
There are no age limits.
There are age limits. Perfect. Which examination must be passed before an amateur radio operator certificate is issued? Basic. Others only enhance a basic qualification. Holders of which of the following certificates may be issued an amateur radio operator certificate? You really had to read RIC3 to get this one.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
Maritime, yeah.
Number 2? Either
Canadian
or
Restricted
4.
Operator Certificate Maritime Commercial.
No, the certificate of maritime ROC, I'm not to tell you,
That's
number 2, yeah.
Number 2? ROCMC?
That's what.
No. So it's the Canadian Radio Communication Operator General Certificate Maritime.
Longest answer.
Yeah.
Longest answer.
Longest answer, yes.
Actually,
Longest answer.
I think technically this is the longest answer, but yep. So I don't think anybody in this room ever has to deal with that. But if you did have a general maritime certificate, you also get the basic, and you don't even have to try.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, this probably doesn't apply to anyone here.
Is that the doorbell?
Yeah.
Oh.
Got the doorbell.
That's what he said, yeah. I didn't hear it.
You have
He's
a
probably
headache?
right.
No, I think the doorbell rang. I'll go up and see. All right,
I'll go.
all right, very good.
One Morse code qualification is available for the amateur radio certificate. It is
5 words a minute.
5, yeah.
excellent. Yeah, 5 words a minute. The holder of an amateur radio operator certificate may design and build from scratch transmitting equipment for the use in the amateur radio service, provided that the person has the
And advanced qualification.
advanced qualification. These are so easy. I love it.
Yeah.
Where a friend is not the holder of any type of radio operator certificate, you, as a holder of an amateur radio operator certificate with basic qualification, may, on behalf of your friend,
Not install, place in operation, modify, repair, maintain, or permit the operation
That's
of
correct.
a radio apparatus.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Oh, you're wrong.
Nope, that was correct.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not install, place in operation, modify, repair, maintain, or permit the operation of the radio apparatus. So,
What's the, just back there just for a second for this old guy's eyes.
yeah, of course.
Install an amateur station but not operate and permit to the operation of an apparatus. And
Now, it says you can let somebody else operate, use the radio, but you must control it.
Oh, yeah.
The word, I think the word is control.
Control.
And what do they mean by control? Push the button?
The person who is legally responsible for the operation of the station. So, if you were the controlling
No, I'm
operator,
saying, do I have to push the button, or do I just have to stand in the room?
you have to stand in the room.
yes,
Yes. It was that.
You're right.
They're very
The way
specific.
the
on it.
word it is, it was not clear about whether you actually had to do the
I
operation.
said this when I came in tonight,
Yeah, no.
the laws are crazy.
Oh, I was talking about the doorbell.
Oh, the doorbell, oh,
You
yeah.
see one like that, you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to read very carefully.
Yeah, no reason that you have to actually push the button for them, but if you are the person in control, you are legally responsible for
Like,
anything they do or say on the
I hopped
radio.
on once on the net, but he was literally right beside me in the car.
Yeah, so. Okay. The key word for this particular answer is that they say repair and modify. You are not allowed to repair and modify radios with a basic qualification. Also, the friend is not a holder of a radio operator certificate. So, here we go. I'll read out all the answers because it's a long one.
One of these.
Which of the following is not correct?
Oh, I hate these.
Yeah.
A radio amateur may operate or permit the operation of radio apparatus only where the apparatus is maintained to the radio communication regulation tolerances. A person may operate an amateur radio station when the person complies with the standards for the operation of radio stations in the amateur radio service. An amateur radio operator transmitting unnecessary or offensive signals does not violate accepted practice. I think we could stop there.
I think that's the answer.
I'll read the last one though. Except for a certified radio amateur operating with authorized amateur radio allocations, no person shall possess or operate any device for the purpose of amplifying the output power of a license-exempt amateur radio apparatus. So we all know that it's if you're saying bad things, bad things
I mean,
happen.
Steve is present, eh? He said, read every word.
Yep, exactly. Sending unnecessary transmissions, especially without identifying yourself every 30 minutes, is a violation of the law. So, which of the following cannot be discussed on an amateur radio club net?
Business planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Business planning, exactly.
Sorry, why is that?
Because it constitutes being a professional activity. So, because it's a business and that is it makes money and loses money, it's not an amateur use, and so it would be considered a professional
Not even
use.
the business of the club?
Not even the business of the club.
Wow.
Because clubs are corporations and legal entities. So,
They're very strict on that then.
yep, like, it depends who's listening, of course, but legally speaking, that's a no-no.
Wow.
So, this violates the amateur nature of our communications.
Anything that belongs in an executive type meeting
No.
shouldn't be out on the air.
So this is Clint, and back there is Martha, both members of the club. They've come this evening. They're going to be doing a presentation during the break about our field day. So,
Fantastic.
So can you mention you're a member of the club?
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's
Like you
just
said, anything that pertains to the actual
Operation.
operations, like as far as like things that are discussed at an executive type level. So talking about, for instance, field day, that's different.
yeah, of course. So, all right. When is a radio amateur allowed to broadcast information to the general public?
Never.
Never.
Never. Exactly.
We're acing this section.
These are the ones they toss on the test to make it easy. Only amateur to amateur, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
When may false or deceptive amateur signals or communications be transmitted?
Never.
Never. Which of the following one-way communications may not be transmitted in the amateur service?
Broadcast intended for the general public.
Yep.
Yeah.
Broadcasts for amateurs are legal, so for example, band condition reports or weather updates for hams would be legal, but not to the general public. You wish to develop and use a new digital encoding technique to transmit data over amateur radio spectrum. Under what conditions is this permissible?
I thought this one, I did this study this one time before it came. It's the ending of the technique is published in the public domain.
Absolutely correct. So, don't know why I sure jumped there, but yep, when it's published in the public domain, you can use the particular radio encoding. When may an amateur station in two-way communication transmit an encoded message?
Only when the encoding or cipher is not secret.
Yep, absolutely. This one gets really sticky really fast. If you talk to some of the people, especially doing packet radio, HTTPS, for example, it runs a weird line because unless you're a cryptographer, nothing I could explain here would make any sense, but specifically saying ciphers or encodings means that you could technically use a cipher because the cipher would be public, but the key used to encrypt the message is private. Just moving on. The transmission of a secret code by the operator of an amateur station.
Not permitted.
Not permitted. Ooh, it's permitted for contests. Wow.
So,
I thought,
the reason they might use this is sometimes they really want to make sure stations have made contact, so they'll assign both of them a secret code that they have to swap with each other, and then hand in at the end to make sure that, yes, they actually have made contact between
but
stations.
besides contacts, isn't it?
Beyond contest.
Okay. That's the exception.
A radio amateur may be engaged in communication that includes the transmission of Yep, clue signals. In the amateur radio service, business communications
Number 1.
are not permitted under any circumstances.
circumstances.
That is correct. Again, amateur. In order to install any radio apparatus to be used specifically for receiving and automatically retransmitting radio telephone communications within the same frequency band, a radio amateur must hold the amateur radio operator certificate with a minimum of
Basic advanced qualification.
basic and advanced qualifications. That's correct. So it's because it's on the same band.
We're doing good.
I didn't even move my mouth.
In order to install, he knew you were thinking it.
Must be.
In order to
You're
install,
like my wife.
Sorry. Oh.
No.
In order to install any radio apparatus to be used specifically for an amateur radio club station, the radio amateur must hold an amateur radio operator certificate with a minimum of the following qualifications.
Basic honors.
Yeah.
Basic
Yes.
advanced.
And
Oh, sorry, honors. My bad. Yeah, no,
Right.
basic and advanced. So, in order to install or operate a transmitter transmitter or RF amplifier that is neither professionally designed nor commercially manufactured for the use in the amateur service, a radio amateur must hold an amateur radio operator certificate with a minimum of which qualifications?
Basic and advanced.
Yep. Who is responsible for the proper operation of an amateur station?
The owner and the control operator.
Both the control operator and the station owner.
That's correct. There we go. This means repeater owners clubs are on the hook for whatever people say on them.
Wow.
So keep that in mind when you're
Wow.
transmitting on them.
Sorry, go back to that again. What do you mean on the hook? Are they personally liable?
Yes. Yes.
Basically, if, with me being one of the, I'm not the full trustee, but being one of the repeater committee, or Alex being part of the repeater committee, it's up to us to make sure, if we notice that there's an illegal activity going on, to shut the repeater down.
And if you don't?
Then
We can get fined.
Oh,
The club gets the fine.
how much is the fine?
Maximum $5,000 and 1 year in prison. So obviously that's under discretion of a judge, but yeah.
I think we had that discussion at one of the meetings, didn't we?
I think so.
Back at the,
Yeah,
at-
basically, the idea is you take due diligence.
Right.
And by shutting the repeater down, we've taken due diligence.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right. Moving on. The owner of an amateur station may. I love these. I don't get to read.
Number 4.
4.
Permit any person to operate the station under the supervision and in the presence of the holder of the amateur radio certificate.
That's the only time.
Yep, that's correct.
And where that comes into play with what we're doing tonight is field day. Anybody who doesn't have a license can operate
so you-
beside you.
I
The
see.
idea is somebody's able to unplug the radio.
Yeah. So, yep, you can let any friend or family member use your radio if you're in the presence of them. So, pretty fun. In the amateur radio service, is it permissible to broadcast? It is permissible to broadcast.
Radio communication required for the intermediate safety and life of individuals and
Yeah, that's the only
intervening
one.
protection of property.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. There's not,
Absolutely.
Everything else is a violation of copyright, right?
Basically,
A
yep.
lot of words.
Well,
Yeah, so
if you wrote the
that's
music
what
yourself,
Bob
though,
said.
for
You
example.
take the ads with the most words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Bob?
Well, I got it from him.
So another thing to keep in mind, though, when they say music on the copyright thing, even if you wrote the music yourself, that's still against the rules. So, what kind of payment is allowed for third-party messages sent by an amateur station?
No payment.
Okay.
Yeah, no payment of any kind is allowed. Again, amateur. The operation of an amateur station.
No payment again.
It's exactly how they're wording it, I guess.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Shall charge no less than $10 for each message.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a
Shall
good
charge no
price.
more than $10 for each
fair.
message. May accept a gift or gratuity in lieu of remunition for any message that a person transmits or receives. Now, of course, the last one. Shall not demand or accept remunerations in any form in respect of any radio communication that the person transmits or receives. Amateur. If a non-amateur friend is using your station to talk to someone in Canada, and a foreign station breaks in to talk to your friend, what should you do?
You have to stop immediately and make sure that that person's government allows the communication.
You stop all discussion and quickly sign off.
Well, you don't have to stop all discussion and quickly sign off. You just have to have your friend wait until you can determine from the foreign station and through your own means if their administration permits third-party traffic. So remember, if a friend is using your station, if you let your radio be used by someone else, they are still a third party, and in this scenario, you are the second party. The other station is the first. So, if you let an unqualified third party use your amateur station, what must you do at your station's control point?
That's in number 4.
You must continuously monitor and supervise the third party's participation. That's correct. You're responsible for your station. So, and again, you don't have to key the transmitter and make sure the station is identifying. You can get them to say the call sign, for example. That would be your call sign because you're the person controlling it. You don't have to monitor or supervise the communication only if contacts are below 30 megahertz. You have to always monitor them. And you must monitor and supervise the communication only if contact is made with countries which have no third, again. If they don't have third-party communications, they can't make a contact because they don't have a license. So, international third-party amateur radio communications in case of emergencies or disaster relief is expressly permitted unless
Specifically prohibited by the foreign administration concerned.
That's correct. Yep. Which of the following statements is not correct? A Canadian radio amateur may, or on amateur frequencies,
Number 1.
pass messages originating from or destined to the United States Military Auxiliary Radio System.
Third-party traffic. Well, wouldn't that be third-party?
Which of the following is not correct? Remember?
Oh yeah, not correct, yes.
So, it's past the third-party traffic with all duly licensed amateur stations in any country which is a member of the ITU. Again, the administration has to be okay with that. So, yeah, it's one of those ones that the first answer you're like, oh, that's correct, but you have to double-check that not. The other country must allow third-party traffic with Canada. Canada allows third-party traffic with any country. Which of these statements is not correct? Again.
Number 1.
Number 1?
I think it's 20. If I remember
The price
right.
is 20.
Yep. So it's $20 per qualification. Which of the following statements is not correct?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, border school.
Number 4.
Disabled candidate must pass the normal amateur radio certificate examination? Yeah, that makes the most sense. So, the exam is to test your knowledge, not your ability to take an exam. So if you are disabled in any way, they will make any arrangements they can. The fee for taking amateur examinations for amateur radio operator certificates by an accredited volunteer examiner is
Number 2.
to be negotiated between the examiner and the candidate. Yep, that's correct. Which of the following statements is false?
Oh, shit.
Number 1.
Number 1. A candidate who fails...
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not.
No, number 1 is all right.
Yeah, you're right. That's false.
So it's number 4.
Yeah.
A candidate with insufficient knowledge of English or French may be accompanied by an interpreter.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, you have to do it in either English or French, and you have to do it solo. So, you must pass the test in either English or French, and you must pass the test without the aid of any other party. So it's just you and the examiner.
So, Bob, you can't sit beside.
There you go, Jackie. Sorry.
Yep. All right, let's take a coffee break. My throat's getting parched. Oh, sorry. So the amateur radio service is defined in
Radio Communications Act.
Radio Communications Act regulations. Yeah.
Oh, you have to have the regulation, and the act. Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Allows you to adopt
Yeah.
Yeah.
these things.
Okay, so the Act only allows the government to establish regulations. The regulations is what actually states what amateur radio is. Yeah.
Right.
What must you do to notify your mailing address changes?
Number 2.
Yeah.
Contact Industry Canada?
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. There's an online portal that you can do this. Once you have your call sign, set up an account with the Industry Canada webpage, and you can do all sorts of things through there, like update your address. You can lock out people changing your address, because you can technically also phone Industry Canada too. So lots of stuff there, especially as you move up and get your advanced and stuff like that. Lots of functionality online. So, whenever a change of mailing address is made,
Number 1.
Industry Canada must be notified within 14 days of operation at a new address. So, not particularly. Just says that Industry Canada must be advised of changes in postal address.
Somewhere, in there I was reading, I think it was something 30 days.
Yeah, I read that too.
Oh, 30 days?
30 days.
Okay, so 30 days. I didn't believe there was one, but yeah, 30 days, hard limit.
I guess
But-
I'll notify them twice then.
Yeah. Well, the thing is the sooner you update them, the better, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's definitely like not like maybe your driver's license, which I believe is 2 weeks. 7 days? Okay.
That's important.
7 days.
Yeah. Lots of stuff like that. So again, this is one of those ones down the list, but make sure it gets done. What is a transmission called that disturbs other communications?
Harmful interference.
Yeah. So, when may you deliberately interfere with another station's communications?
Never.
Never. Yep. Oh yeah, there is the answer. Never. Yep. Never, ever, 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 ever. Don't do this. Even if you're on a protected band, a band that's primarily allocated to the amateur service, don't interrupt a service that's interrupting you. Report them. What name is given to the form of interference that seriously degrades, obstructs, or repeatedly interrupts a radio communication service?
Harmful interference.
Harmful interference, yeah.
That's correct. When referencing, where interference to the reception of radio communication is caused by the operation of an amateur station.
I'd say number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. The minister may require that the necessary steps for the prevention of the interference be taken by the radio amateur. The corollary to that is, if you are unable to prevent the interference by any mean possible, they may just prevent you from operating from that location.
That would fix it.
Yeah, that would fix it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can't operate there because... So, radio amateur operators are not protected from interference caused by a service operating in which of the following frequency bands?
144 to 148 megahertz.
902 to 928.
Yeah,
That would be
that's
that
correct.
First one, yeah.
So that's the industrial, scientific, and medical. Amateurs are secondary users on 902 to 928 megahertz band. This is the ISM band, the home of such things as baby monitors, wireless power meters, used by the local electrical utility. They are all license exempt. So this and 2.4 gigahertz as well as 5 gigahertz now. They recently added that one. Which of the following is not correct? The operator of an amateur station so remember, it's one of those false ones. So, they may not make trials or tests, even though there is a possibility of interfering with other stations. So you can only test if you can guarantee it won't interfere with somebody. The amateur radio service is authorized to share a portion of what industrial, scientific, and medical band that is heavily used by license-exempt devices.
Again.
Number 1?
Yeah. I'm thinking. It's kind of hard to get all the numbers in your brain, but I think it's that number 1.
So it's 2.3 to 2.45.
Think about what's in the 2.4 gig band. Wi-Fi.
So, amateurs have been allocated access to the 2.3 to 2.45 gigahertz, a portion that falls in the industrial, scientific, and medical band of 2.4 gigahertz to 2.5 gigahertz. If you operate in this band, you may have to contend with interference from license-exempt devices used for industrial, scientific, and medical purposes, mostly Wi-Fi routers, and microwaves if you have those on nearby. Which of the following call signs is a valid Canadian amateur radio call sign?
Number 3.
It's nice and easy. All right. How often must an amateur station be identified?
Every 30 minutes.
Beginning and end and every 30 minutes.
Yeah, at least every 30 minutes and the beginning and the end of the contact. What do you transmit to identify your amateur call sign?
Your call sign.
Wow.
There we go, I gave it away. But yeah, it's not your handle, your first name and location, or your full name.
So when I'm on radio, I give your call sign?
Not my call sign, your call sign. Hey, is your call sign is this? Yeah. All right. What language may you use when identifying your call sign? Or your station?
Everything but profanity.
Everything but profanity. No.
English or French.
English or French, exactly. Which means that I may also pronounce my call sign V-E-3-Z-S-H. French.
Oui.
The call sign of Canadian amateur radio stations would normally start with the letters.
One.
Number one, yeah. V-A-V-E-V-O-V-Y. A person operating a Canadian amateur station is forbidden to communicate with an amateur stations of another country.
Number two. Number three, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the longest answer wins.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
When the country has notified the international telecommunications using the object to such communications. Until he has properly identified his station, not really. So you can technically operate, you probably shouldn't operate with somebody who's just yelling on the band and not saying their call sign. Just kind of out of good habit. But legally speaking, they're the only one responsible for that. Without written permission from Industry Canada is definitely wrong though. So.
I don't understand that.
So a person operating in Canada is forbidden to communicate with amateur stations of another country when the country has notified the ITU that it objects to the communications. So, for example...
Yeah, so this third party has the objection, yeah.
Well, not particularly. A classic example is North Korea, for example. North Korea has informed the International Telecommunications Union that they do not want people communicating with anyone for any reasons in their country through radio.
Wow.
So communicating with them would be illegal in Canada
That's
to
rather
you.
a harsh statement to make, isn't it? Or law?
Yeah. International communications on behalf of a third party may be transmitted by an amateur station only if...
I would say number three.
The countries for which the traffic is intended... Oh, no. The countries concerned have authorized such communications. International communications on behalf of third parties may be transmitted by another station only if the countries for which the traffic is intended have registered their consent to such communications. No, so yeah, any country that's a member of the ITU automatically consents unless they specifically withhold that consent, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, which of the following is not correct? While operating in Canada, a radio amateur licensed by the government of the United States must...
Obtain the Canadian amateur certificate before operating in Canada.
That's correct, yeah. So they must add to the call sign the prefix of the geographic location they're in, qualify their identity when using phone by saying the word mobile or portable, or when using Morse code with a slash, and identify using the call sign that the United States gave them. In addition to passing the basic written examination, what must you do before you're allowed to use amateur frequencies below 30 megahertz?
Ask Jeffrey to help you.
I got him.
I think you just got volunteered into a position. Number one, yeah. It's because it's below 30 megahertz, you must pass either a Morse code advanced or attain the honors credit on your basic. What is the maximum authorized bandwidth within the frequency range 50 to 148 megahertz?
And that's 30. Yeah.
Yep.
And
30.
What does the KHZ stand for?
Kilohertz.
Kilohertz, yeah.
Yeah.
Back earlier, you said something, and it was the MHZ.
Yeah.
I thought that was megahertz.
It is. So they wrote 2,400 megahertz,
Yeah.
which would be 2.4 gigahertz.
Oh,
so
all right.
I just didn't really want to have to say 2,400 or 2,400.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
But technically, this could be 0.03 megahertz if you wanted to. But nobody would say that.
Yeah, but you know, when I was doing the coaxial one, they do break it up and go back to the. So you gotta watch your P's and Q's there.
Yep, prefix is important. The maximum bandwidth of an amateur station's transmission allowed in the band 28 to 29.7 megahertz is...
Number one again.
Yeah, perfect.
Go to megahertz. Or kilohertz. 20 kilohertz. Don't...
Yeah.
20 megahertz is definitely wrong.
Kilohertz is the answer, yeah. 20, yeah.
Yeah. Except for one band, the maximum bandwidth of an amateur station's transmission allowed between 7 and 28 megahertz is... 6. Yeah. So...
How'd you know that, man? You're not a good one.
I'm sitting beside you and starting to learn.
So an easy way to remember is on the low frequencies you get less bandwidth.
Yeah.
So, there you go. The maximum bandwidth of an amateur station's transmission allowed in the band 144 to 148 megahertz is...
30 kilohertz.
Yeah.
That's correct. Everybody knows their bands really well. The maximum bandwidth of an amateur station's transmission allowed in the band 50 to 54 megahertz is...
20 kilohertz.
20.
30.
30.
Yep.
Oh,
Got me fooled on that one.
yeah, me too. I was almost certain it was
I
20.
thought it was 20.
Okay. Single sideband is not permitted in the band.
Single side.
Number 4.
Number 4. Yep, that's correct. So, the 30 meter band is the Canadian only band, and it's only got 1 kilohertz of bandwidth in there. So, what precaution must an amateur radio operator take when transmitting near band edges?
Ooh.
Don't go over them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where's Bob? He was talking about that last time we were here. The width of the band, and then you just go outside that and you drop off, and you're doo-doo.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Number 3, everybody say?
Yeah,
Ensure that the bandwidth
bandwidth
required on either side of the carrier frequency does not fall outside the band. That is correct. Alright, yeah, from RBR Section 4, Section 10.1, 190 watt carrier power for transmitter that produces any other type of emanation. Don't know why this is in there. Moving on. An unmodulated carrier may be transmitted only.
Number 4? Or
For brief tests on frequencies below 30 megahertz? Yeah.
Good one, Jeffrey.
The below 30 megahertz isn't a real thing so much. You should only have an unmodulated carrier when testing, otherwise you're just hogging bandwidth. So, anything else ties up airtime without a purpose. Radio telephone signals in a frequency band below blank megahertz can be automatically retransmitted. Cannot be automatically retransmitted unless these signals are received from a station operated by a person qualified to transmit on frequencies below the above frequency.
I thought that was 29.5 megahertz.
29.5 or 29.7?
No, 29.5, I think. And the only reason I remember that's because I memorized it.
Okay. Yep. So crossband repeaters into HF are not legal for the basic only qualification. It is illegal for the repeater to do this for them. So, and the repeater operator is at fault. So, which of these statements about installation or modification of antenna structure is not correct? I'll read them out because they're pretty tiny. Prior to an installation for which community concerns have been raised, radio amateurs may be required to consult with their land use authority. A radio amateur may erect any sized antenna structure without consulting neighbors or the local land use authority.
2.
A radio amateur must follow Industry Canada's sitting procedures, and Industry Canada expects radio amateurs to address community concerns in a responsible manner.
So 2.
Yeah, 2. We call this the Don't Be a Prat law. It makes sure you talk to everybody, get everybody's permission. If anybody has any concerns, there are processes for dealing with that. So, who has, sorry?
If you buy land that's more than 3 times the height of your antenna, does that make a difference?
Don't believe so. I don't believe that's one of the legal.
You have to notify somebody, any neighbors within 3 times your antenna height.
Oh, really? Okay.
But if you own land that's already extends beyond 3 times your antenna height, you still have to notify.
I'd have to double check CPC on that.
Well, that's double liberty.
Well, I got to put in a whole electrical system in a house without having a master electrician's permit in the city that required that by using the little loopholes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, with that,
So I got my eye on a piece of property.
the three times
It's quite square, wide.
the 3 times the height thing, was that part of the local land use
3
authority?
times the height. Any neighbor that falls within 3 times the height of your antenna.
Okay.
You know what frightens me about that is the different communities and they each have a different and yet separate bylaw.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how you have to do your homework.
Absolutely.
If you want to pass to 49 feet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think around here it's generally anything below 55 feet is pretty safe. I think above that you have to check with the airport. Those are the kind of the big things is if you're not in a glide path.
Yeah.
And then once you get over a certain height, you have to worry about lighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I live on Hillcroft Street, so just over there. There's several of us off of Hillcroft. Back in 1995, when I moved down here with my parents, we were told city bylaw was the max you could have for a tower is 50 feet. They required a permit because we are on the glide path for Oshawa Airport. We checked with them to see if we needed to light it up, and they're like, you're fine as long as you stay below 60 feet that you're required to install lights.
So, the key I would say is always talk to the municipality, and if they have a local land use authority, talk to them as well, and all your neighbors, of course. So, if you are planning to install or modify an antenna system, under what conditions may you not be required to contact land use authorities to determine public consultation requirements? Yep. So when an exclusion criteria defined by Industry Canada applies. We'll see these in following questions. So, oh, I thought we had a question. The Land Use Authority has not established a process for public consultation for antenna systems. You live in a really sparsely populated area, I assume. The radio amateur planning to install or modify an antenna system.
Number 2.
Yeah. Must fulfill the public consultation requirements set out in Canada's default public consultation process unless the Land Use Authority excludes their type of proposal from consultation or it is excluded by Industry Canada's process.
Long question, long answer.
Yeah. Oh, that is by far the longest answer I will see anywhere in a test. Which is not an element of the Industry Canada public consultation process for antenna systems. Maybe it's the long answer again.
Participating in public meetings in the project.
Yeah, so you don't have to do that. The default public consultations process for antenna systems requires proponents to address
I think it's number 1.
Yeah, sounds about right. So, reasonable and relevant concerns provided in writing within 30 days public comment period. So, it sounds pretty reasonable. You probably don't have to provide a response to somebody who thinks you're trying to do mind control, but anybody who has a decent objection to the skyline or something, you have to come up with a written response to. Where a municipality has developed a public consultation process, which of the following options best describe all circumstances when public consultation may not be required?
Number 1.
Exclusions listed in both CPC 2003 and the local land use authority process?
Oh no, or. Sorry. Read that.
Exclusions listed in either CPC 203, 003, sorry, or the local land use authority process.
Either one.
Yeah. So it's not the union of both. It's the or not the intersection. It's the union. Where the proponents and the stakeholders, other than the general public, reach an impasse over a proposed antenna system, the final decision will.
Made by Industry Canada.
Yep. So they always have final say. In general, what is the tallest amateur radio antenna system excluded from the requirements to consult with the land use authority and the public where there is land use authority defined public consultation process?
If that's on the exam, I failed. 21 meters.
15.
So it's the taller of the height exclusion of either the land use authority and the public consultation process and Industry Canada's antenna siting procedures.
yeah, right.
Industry Canada says 15 meters unless the land use authority has said otherwise. So
read slowly. Pay attention.
yeah, exactly. You're like 15. It's 15, and you're like, there's like 2 sentences.
It's a long one.
Yeah. Where a land use authority or municipality has established a public consultation process for antenna systems, who determines how public consultation should take place?
The municipality or land use authority.
Yeah, of course. Once the process is in place, you must follow it, of course. So, one of the following is not considered to be communications on behalf of a third party, even though the message is originated by or addressed to a non-amateur.
Message originating from the Canadian Forces affiliated radio service.
Yep. That one is considered to be first-party communications. Again, one of the following is not considered to be communications on behalf of a third party, even though the message may be originated by or addressed to a non-amateur.
The last one.
The last one,
Yeah, Mars. They're literally the same thing as far as the law is concerned. So.
Mars and SARS.
No, not SARS. CFARS. If you let another amateur with additional qualifications than yours control your station, what operating privileges are allowed?
Yours, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, only the privileges allowed by your qualification. So you own the station, and under your qualifications, when they use yours, they are a third party under your license, despite having their own. So, if you are the control operator at a station of another amateur, if you are the control operator at the station of another amateur who has additional qualification to yours, what operating privileges are you allowed?
Just yours.
Just yours. Yep. Only the privileges allowed by your qualification. Yep. This is if you are the control operator. This is if you are the control operator. They are the control operator, I mean.
Yeah.
Alright, we're done. Congratulations, we made it. Woo. We're finally done in the course. How does everybody feel?
Do I get my certificate tonight?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. So, hold on. We're not fully done. Homework, we have to go through this. So, the first thing you should do, go through your textbook. Hopefully you've been highlighting as you go along. If you haven't, definitely pay attention to chapters 12 through 14. 12 does the phonetic alphabet, it does Q codes. 13 does transmitters, 14 does receivers. Mm-hmm. Study up on that again. It's brute force memorization at this point, unfortunately. Nobody's going to know where the oscillator connects to the mixer and the filter and the amplifier. So.
Oh, that's so confusing. You know what? I drew that. I drew that at home. And then I went back the next day and I drew it again and I flipped it over on the opposite side, see if I was right? Wrong.
Just keep at it.
Yeah.
Just keep at it. So,
it was handy to put all the schematics together and receivers to see that they were almost all identical except for a couple of modules in each.
Yeah, I was comparing them, but I never thought of drawing them out. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I got the idea from another book that I was reading, and it you know, this basic exam and the understanding of the study of it is fine, but it leads you forward into the advanced. I mean, even the book tells you that this is not really what you need for basic. I mean, this book here, it tells you it's advanced, but once you start reading it, you can't put the book down and say, I don't want to read that. Because your brain in the back says, well, let's go and see what's there.
Yeah, when it says it's going to go a little bit beyond, it does mean a little bit. So most of the information is going to be on the test. Things that aren't are typically when it goes off into digital protocols and the different parts of those, or some of the atomic theory on how atoms work. Technically, it's not on the test. They're not going to say how do atoms move around But that sort of information is really useful when you're learning basic electronics. So.
Yeah, I had a question on that very last one. If you only have your basic and the owner has an HF because he's got his advanced, you could still use the radio on HF simply because you're doing it under the guidance of him.
Yeah.
It kind of contradicts it with the answer there.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. So the way it works specifically here is the control operator. So if you are acting as control operator, then technically the station is under your control. So basically if you invite a friend over and you're like, hey, let's jump on the radio, if you're going to act as control operator on it, then it's yours.
So in other words, the fella's out of the picture. And
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good example is field day. If you're up there operating on your
Yeah.
own versus where the advanced operators such as me are up there, then you're running under the advanced operator because we're the ones that are maintaining the station call. So it's basically our licenses. In order to operate the HF, we always have to have somebody advanced present.
Which means you've got to read this very carefully.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It's
Every
not.
answer.
It doesn't just snap clear, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, again, it's only if you're the control operator. If you do, for example, if you're at field day and you're with somebody who's advanced, at field day, for example, the advanced person is going to be the person operating the station. So you would just be a third party at that point operating on it.
You know, a lot of these questions, they try and trick you.
Oh, absolutely.
With the
Yeah.
wording, you know.
Yeah.
Like Steve said there, you gotta read that whole sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to be true.
And then cross off the obviously wrong ones, and then maybe you'll end up with a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Exactly.
A lot of the questions is common sense. And if you approach it with common sense, then you go through it and you go, like, there's no way that one's right. There's no way that one's right. That one there makes the most sense, even from somebody who's not even knowing the regulations. You'll find that. Like or at least it'll get you down to the last.
That's exactly what I found when I did it. Honestly, it's not as hard as you're making it out to be on the screen. You know, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. It's like even the advanced one. When it comes down to it, a lot of the questions, they want you to pay attention to decimal points and using the right formula. If you know the right formula and you know how to work the metric system, you have no problems. There's no reason that you won't get the right answer.
Alrighty. So yeah, review your textbook, of course, chapters 12 through 14, especially if you don't have any notes on highlighting. If you have highlighting, review those first, of course. Next, take the practice exam. I know there are still people in here who've only done half an exam or a third of an exam or different sections. Do a full exam 2, 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
You've got 2 weeks to do it. If you can do one test every 2 days, for example, that'll be way more than you need. And I would say at this point, the best way to kind of work this out, take the exam in the next couple of days, Monday through Wednesday. If you score above a 70, you could probably leave it until the Sunday before if you could spend the whole day just doing test after test after test. If you're scoring below a 70, definitely do every day or every other day do a test. All right, and then when you fail it, take all of the questions, go back through the textbook, find those sections, study it. That'll be your best chances to get to the 70 that you need and an 80% for advanced. So,
Does the new test generator refer you back to the section?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. So if you want the sections, you have to use the COEX Publications one. The Industry Canada one will just tell you that you failed in a particular topic.
Okay, so that's similar to the examiner, the old one that we used to do. They would tell you what section it was.
Oh, the examiner, yeah. Okay, there is that one as well, the examiner. That's on the